Hi, welcome to the News Reporter's Guide to a Police Shooting. This edition focusing on the question of why did the police shoot at a vehicle, or in technical terms, it's cases where a vehicle is being used as a deadly weapon against the police. The intended audience for these videos are news reporters and members of the media who are been assigned to report on a police shooting and want to do so accurately and need background information. My name is Andy Cooley. I'll be your host. Since 1985, I've represented police agencies and police officers in all kinds of cases, including numerous deadly force cases. And many of those have been cases where my police officers shot at a vehicle where the vehicle was being used as a deadly weapon against them, and they needed to shoot at that vehicle in order to save themselves or others. I'm speaking in these videos on behalf of myself. I'm not speaking on behalf of any client of mine. I'm not speaking on behalf of any police agency or client that I represent or police officer that I represent. These are just my thoughts about these matters so that you as reporters can do a good job in reporting on these cases. The law of lethal force in the United States under the Fourth Amendment is that police officers are entitled to use lethal or deadly force when it is necessary to protect themselves or others from serious bodily injury or death. And if they're faced with that imminent risk of serious bodily injury or death, they're entitled to use deadly force. And the deadly force can be their firearm, deadly force can be their own car, deadly force can be any other tool at their disposal. Often the police are in an encounter with a suspect where the suspect is either in a car or near a car and can get to that car. And often the police are in a position where they can't necessarily control that person's access to the car or what they do while they're inside of the car. And often, many times, the police have been in a position where the person that they have a reason to stop is trying to use the car against them as some kind of weapon. They're driving the car at them, they're going to try to run over the police, they're going to try to ram either the police on foot or the police where they're in their own patrol car. And in those cases where the subject is using the vehicle where it might cause serious bodily injury or death, the police are then entitled to use lethal force against that vehicle. Now, one of the questions that comes up is why don't the police shoot to disable the vehicle? Why don't they shoot their firearm, say, toward the engine? Or why don't they try to shoot the tires out? And that question is sometimes raised because on television and in action movies, the people involved there might shoot at a vehicle and completely disable it or destroy it using firearms. The reality is much different. The engine of a car is incredibly sturdy and certainly will not be impacted by sidearms that are carried by the police. 9mm, 45 caliber bullets do not penetrate metal very well, and they certainly don't go into an engine block. In fact, police officers are trained that if they need to get to cover, and cover is distinguished from concealment, cover is where you're trying to get behind something that will stop bullets coming toward you. One of the safest places to be is behind the engine block of a car, because that engine block will stop even rifle rounds, and that's an effective area of cover. And so there's simply no legitimate basis to believe that the police could use their sidearm or even a long arm to try to disable a car by shooting at the engine. Second, people ask, why don't they shoot at the car tires? Well, modern car tires are well designed and often use a lightweight and durable substance called Kevlar as the belting of the tire to prevent sharp objects from going into the tire. Well, Kevlar is the same durable material that's used in vests and body armor maintained by the police or worn by the police so that they won't be shot. And so there's a real risk if you try to shoot at a tire that you're actually going to have the bullet ricochet off the tire and it won't go in and disable the tire. So that's two reasons why the police won't shoot at the engine block, try to disable the engine. They won't shoot at the tire, try to flatten the tires. Instead, what they'll shoot at, if they have the right to use lethal force, they'll shoot at the driver of that vehicle because they're trying to disable and render that person no longer able to drive the vehicle at them or to risk their injuring them in that kind of situation. Now, again, police officers can use lethal force anytime they fear serious bodily injury or death. And so being drugged by a car, if you're tied up in the interior of the car trying to get at the steering wheel or trying to get at the keys, being run over by a car, being struck by the car and catapulted, all those could cause serious bodily injury or death. And they explain why when a subject who may not have a gun but does have a vehicle may be using that vehicle in a manner that justifies the officers in using lethal force. So police officers can use lethal force whenever they have a reasonable fear of serious bodily injury or death. Vehicles can produce both serious bodily injury and death, and therefore if the vehicle is being used as a weapon against the officers are entitled to shoot at the driver of that vehicle to stop them, and it would be a bad idea to shoot at the engine block or at the tires. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.